Right, hey guys, how we doing? Back on another video from Totally Not Mark, continuing with the Berserk reviews. I've just finished the Conviction arc, and so I wanted to see what Mark thought about it. I felt it was a bit slow at the beginning, but as I got into it, it's like, whoa, and then that end was just like, oh my god, what's happening next? And I've just started the next arc, and I'm just like, I can't, so yeah, I'm gonna keep binging this Berserk manga now, then hopefully end of the month have a reaction out to Super Eye Patch Wolf's why you should still read Berserk. But for now, let's see what Mark thought about the Conviction arc, because I thought this was boss. This was absolutely sick. Like, the eyes, man, I love how they just kept popping up.
This arc contains within it not only the best chapter I've read from Berserk, but perhaps the single greatest chapter, or most impactful, I've read in my life.
I wonder which chapter that is.
While Lost Children felt like a brief derailling of the main
it was a nice little story, that.
Whole contains within it not only a fascinating continuation of the story, but some harsh truths and tough subject matter, the likes of which I've seldom seen explored in this medium, and certainly nowhere near as tactfully executed. This arc is a special one.
A lot of religion thrown in this, isn't there?
Not Mark, and today I want to talk to you all about my experience reading Berserk's Conviction arc for the very first time.
Oh, it's so sick. Oh, Griffith. Mate, what's gonna happen next? I'm just so like, ugh. Here we go.
Normally when I tackle a series on my channel, I immerse myself into the material wholly and entirely until such time it's finished. One Piece, almost 6 months of nothing but One Piece on my channel. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, only JoJo for months and months.
Oh, I see. This is where you started mixing it all up, yeah.
Hunter x Hunter. But Berserk is the first series I've done where, after every video, I'm forced to take a break for almost a full month between sessions of reading. This is for logistical reasons, as we can't feasibly make videos using only manga week in and week out.
It's a bit difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
In turn, this created for me a relationship.
Good editing techniques here, man. Sick.
Couldn't have predicted. A reaction that, with any other manga, would have conjured a resentful disaster. Having to constantly pull myself from material I'm outwardly enjoying, like Naruto and Dragon Ball, for the express purpose of reacquainting myself with this very dense and emotionally draining series. It seems like it would be a recipe for disaster, and thus was the mindset I found myself to be in every single time I have to tackle this Berserk series. And I won't deny this, I want to be honest, it's a series that over the last few months has forced me to stay off balance as I switch from the comparably softer and easier to understand material
to Berserk. The darkness. Yeah, it's a lot in it.
Orchestrations from a master of his craft. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But every single time I grumpily pick up these volumes for the purposes of making a video. And yet, every single time they, without exception, never allow me to put them down.
No,
they are some of the best
was so stuck on this one.
But art that I've ever been exposed to. It's like the movie 50 First Dates, only instead of Adam Sandler, Berserk forces me to fall in love with it every single time.
Oh.
And so, I guess what I'm trying to say is, Berserk is the 50 First Dates of manga.
Casca,
and on this occasion, I was confronted
bless.
by an arc that reduced me to tears, and a chapter that shook my very soul. And unlike the previous Berserk reviews, after finishing this arc, I decided to
mate, that fight was something else with the priest.
This time. Apparently, the Conviction arc is broken up into 3 separate sections. Lost Children, which I covered last week, Binding Chain, and finally, Bird Ceremony. The latter two will of course receive the vast majority of the focus in this video, but through my research I learned that quite a few people don't like Lost Children, which was interesting to me, but I think it's understandable. Allow me to explain my impressions of this divide and where I think they stem from.
Interesting, cool, because I liked it, but it wasn't like incredible.
Seen as a decent start with stunning visuals, despite it being a rather unremarkable start that would eventually build up more steam towards its conclusion.
Yeah.
Similarly, through my coverage of the Golden Age arc, I recognize
Golden Age.
global acknowledgement of the story's masterpiece status amongst manga, from both fans of the material to even those that never even read Berserk in their lives.
Oh.
However, Lost Children was different. There was no such unanimous agreements. There were those that loved it, those that believed it was sort of overrated, and those that straight up did not enjoy this section at all. And while I stand by my assessment of the story in my last review, that being I really, really liked it, to put it simply.
Yeah.
I also concede that I believe I know where those sentiments of negativity are stemming from. Golden Age is a much more standard format for a story.
Very much so, yeah.
Narrative that follows the life of one central character primarily and his relationships with other key characters as he grows into the man we see today. It's very much a coming-of-age story, not at all unusual.
Yeah.
Because of this, we grow a fondness for this experience, and once it ends, we want to see it continue. And unfortunately, Lost Children didn't offer an experience that many were yearning for.
Yeah, not what you
Golden
expected.
Age. Despite it being an account that followed the events of Golden Age and Black Swordsman arcs respectively, Miura decided not to tell a story that primarily concerned itself with Guts, but instead a little girl called Jill. Guts plays a substantial role,
But they start doing this as it goes on, don't it? It gives other people their stories and their backstories and everything. Like I'm at the moment reading a backstory on Lady Finesse, is her name? The one that's obsessed with, well, not obsessed, but she enjoys the fire.
And I also found it to be a
The eclipse.
continuation of the series for sure. However, I can absolutely see why this wasn't what a lot of people wanted. Conviction arc. During this portion of the story, it became clear relatively quickly that the main storyline that took a break after the Golden Age was once again picking itself right back
It's
up.
back.
During the events of Lost Children, we were introduced to this impending religious force known as the Holy Iron Chain Knights as one of the forces on a mission pursuing and capturing the
Black Swordsman. Yeah.
And boy, do they do just that. Despite the high death toll of their forces,
They do lose a lot of men.
Lady Farnice, and boy, do I have a lot to say about this girl.
Lady Finesse. I call her Finesse. She's interesting. She's got a lot going on. That bit where she gets possessed.
Nevertheless, keeping me guessing the entire time as to how Guts would escape this exhausting situation, and in the end, the answer was he couldn't. He was too beat up.
Caught.
As a quick aside, one aspect of the story that immediately caught my attention was its cast. The story goes hard in the character department, and it's all for the best, let me tell you.
There's a lot of people, and it builds up to like, whoa.
Lady Farnice, her devout protector and all-around lovable badass in Serpent.
He is interesting.
Accurate depiction of all of religion's worst qualities.
Yeah, that priest was something else.
And many more.
Whip,
Some
whip.
of which I'll touch on later for sure. I loved every single character in this arc, and I mean that without reservation.
He's cool. I like the kid as well. He's sick.
Is with characters like Isidro or Nina later on, who are designed to, I think, be a bit more divisive. But from an entertainment and thematic standpoint, I found them to be pitch perfect. However, it's during this time spent as a prisoner and after escaping that I soon began to recognize perhaps a parallel that Miura was trying to illustrate for me. Lady Farnice is one of the few main characters that stood out among the Holy Iron Chain Knights, with her being the main character of conflict for Guts as well as his eventual hostage once he escapes.
Oh yeah.
She's complicated and in many
Very
ways
complicated is the word. Jesus Christ.
Both professionally and emotionally. Physically and mentally weak, yet commander of her forces thanks to her father. Espouses to the virtues of dignity, duty, restraint, and kindness, and yet relentlessly lashes out to others with the smallest infraction, oftentimes with resentful or envious motivations. Confidently religious, but hedonistic and confused.
Yeah,
She's one of
my
the most
God.
frustrating characters in the story, fundamentally flawed as a person, and one that plays a leading role, receiving, I think, the most development by far in this tale. And I absolutely hated her for most of it, but god damn it, she's a brilliant character. Now, the only reason I found it noteworthy to mention her contributions this early in the arc was due to the symbolic or nostalgic nature of them. She reminded me in some ways of Casca, and okay, I know what you're thinking, but hear me out for a second.
Okay.
For Casca, Griffith may as well have been her religion. She devoted her life to him, and when it came down to choosing between him and another, she saw it sort of like a sin, almost going as far as to kill herself. In fact, she tried to. There
Yeah.
are, of course,
Got caught her when she fell off, didn't she? Yeah.
these characters, but given that following Lady Farnice's possession, which has very similar undertones and results, by the way,
Oh,
it
God.
immediately thrown back into
Interesting, yeah.
contact with Casca's storyline, and due to that, I couldn't help but feel like this was an intentional comparison being drawn on behalf of Miura. Oh, and by the way, with this jump to Casca's storyline, almost linking these 2 points of view, we see a shared dream? It's honestly hard to know. It's 3 pages and it depicts forces that make themselves known later on in the story upon its conclusion. Massive beasts, death, sickness, desperation, and a white shining falcon in the middle of it all.
Oh god, and now all that ends up.
I'm not not sure in retrospective if this was an omen predicting what's in store during this arc or the next, but Lord knows almost all of these come to fruition during this portion of the story or its latter half, which oddly enough made me think about the name of this arc. Conviction is an interesting name for this story, and one that I didn't fully appreciate until such time this part of the story rolled around. Given the state of Guts, how far gone he is, and how the entire world seems to be in some shape or form interested in his capture, I saw this arc's title as an indication that he'll be captured and in this story ultimately convicted. And while that does happen in some shape or form in this series, the tale itself is more concerned with the alternate meaning of the term conviction, which is a firmly held belief in something. And that brings me nicely to my favorite chapter following Guts' first time returning to Rickard, Godo, and Casca in 2 years. Cracks in the blade.
She's gone. Oh, and the dude fixes up his sword and that for him. Oh.
Chapters that stand out in my head as not just brilliantly panelled, but
this was emotional.
Profound. Taking what we thought were known motivations of the main character and turning them completely on their head. In Campfire of Dreams, it was his acknowledgement that despite being among friends and there being a home for him there, he never felt more alienated from those around him, reminding him that he needs to find his own dream, his own desires, his own convictions. And within Cracks in the Blade, we finally get an answer to that question posed during Campfire of Dreams. And with it, yet another masterful recontextualization of events from Miura. Just like Campfire, Cracks' most pivotal moments center around two people sharing insight.
Yeah, they have a nice chat, don't they? Oh, God.
And another about to make the same mistake. However, unlike Campfire, Cracks' subject matter and philosophical profundity casts a much broader net than just within the arc it's presented, and in fact caused me to reflect on the broader story and even certain decisions I've made in my life. It's a chapter that works, frankly, as well as it does because those that are reading it need to hear it, given most who read this manga are of similar age to that of Guts, or at least a little bit older, and I can't say many stories have had that sort of impact on me. Shining a light on the selfish decision Guts made to go out into the world to leave Casca
her behind,
the hatred in his heart, exacting his revenge on the monsters that took everything from him. These are traits often glorified in manga. However, with Berserk, Godo effectively calls Guts a coward that couldn't look sorrow, in this case Casca, in the eye without wavering. Someone who took the easy way out rather than confront the problems and prioritize. The god, the Herculean figure that Guts has been made out to be due to the feats he's enacted on those he's hated, now feeds into the narrative that these are all acts of cowardice. And it's a brilliant way to look at this particular problem. And as a result of that now, he's beaten himself to near death and Casca has run off somewhere, presumably dead, yielding massive consequences for this arc and its trajectory moving forward. This is exactly the sort of cause and effect I was looking for from this story following the Golden Age.
Let's go, let's find Casca, This is something that's leading up as well, isn't it? I've seen pictures of him having some sort of armor thing like that.
Honestly, I'm struggling to
so that's something to look forward to. Everything's so seeds planted.
The first half of this section is taken into the context of the current material. All of the criticisms of Lost Children, a story I once described as a fairy tale of sorts, echoes the criticisms Godo had for Guts in the Cracks in the Blade chapter, claiming that he was indulging in a fantasy instead of the reality being there for those that he cared about. One of the many markers I think of a great story is its ability to recontextualize prior events and lend greater weight to them via new material. One Piece does this to great effect, and I'm seeing it right here too in Berserk, time and time again. Let's talk about Behelitz and how they've affected this story while staying in line with the theme
Let's
of
talk
this
about
arc.
Behelitz.
Bravery in the face of indulgent fantasy. In the Black Swordsman arc, the Count exacerbated the situation he was in when he wasn't capable of dealing with the horrible fate that befell his wife. In the Golden Age, Griffith lost himself in his own fantasy, which in turn made his journey that much longer, ignoring himself for the sake of one other person that in the end he couldn't control. In Lost Children, Rosine couldn't deal with her own personal life, so she escaped by killing her family and created her own paradise free from the stresses of the real world. And the list goes on. However, in this arc, these themes are explored more effectively through Lady Farnice, constantly pretending to herself that the various horrific occurrences haven't happened and that she remains the pure, good, God-loving girl she wants to be, instead of the cold-blooded, hedonistic murderer she
actually
has been in the past.
is, yeah.
Speaking of which, let's talk about Father Mozgus.
Oh my
The depiction of Father
god.
Musgus as the arbiter of God's will is one of the most horrifying depictions I've yet seen from this manga.
This character design is
Perhaps
so
because he's paraded around
strange.
as a function of the church and conceived of as a force of good. His design, I think, goes a long way in reaffirming this unsettled approach that I felt, with it being far more
Unsettling
simple and
is definitely
expressionless than the other more
the word to
anatomically
describe the
accurate
way he
depictions
looks.
of
It
the
is. It's very
condition, further
strange.
making him feel
God, yeah, look at that. That's so
than
weird.
any human we've come across so far in the story. Shifting gears for a moment from evil to innocent comes the character of Isidro. I have no idea what the prevailing opinion is of this character online, but I honestly loved him.
I thought he was
thought
class.
offered a reminder that innocence and childishness is still very much alive in this world and in the middle of these horrible events. I mean, like Puck said, this story would be too dark if they weren't there. With some additional surprising
There was a bit of
support in the
fourth wall
various
breaking,
tense and
wasn't
high-stakes
there?
action moments, in a way he sort of feels like a more standard shonen manga protagonist, but I think that coupled with the nature of this story really had me worried for him on more than one occasion, further building up the tension in the scenes that he took part in. I was certain a brave kid like this wouldn't be long for this world.
No, I thought he was going to die like a few times.
His attitude and skills lifted him out of the bad situations he found himself in, and I was relieved and hyped because of it. I also really enjoyed how the aspects of Isidro that kept him alive and allowed him to remain in a position of advantage were in fact his readiness to accept reality and warp it to suit him. Furthermore, Isidro, pretty much like Guts, fights against the idea of fate or what is established. He wants to be the best version of himself and sees Guts as someone to aspire to be.
Oh, yeah, he
I honestly think
does.
he's pretty awesome, and I'm delighted that moving forward we'll get to see more of him. So look, okay, at this point, Casca's alive, which is great.
Yay!
She's in the heart of one of the worst situations in Midland and the center of what will be a dark event unlike anything we've yet seen in the story, save for perhaps the eclipse. Rest in peace, everyone. So,
The
let's see
eclipse.
how this one pans out. Nina, orgies, and the cults. Peggy 18.
Yes,
Some of the
very
images
much so.
are
Like,
frightening,
what?
and perhaps not for the reasons you might be thinking. When I was in school, history was my favorite subject. I always treated the lessons like detailed stories of the past, and one of the topics that stunned me the most was the Black Death. A massive plague that wiped out over half of Europe, which, to be honest, is the clear inspiration for this plague right here in Midland.
Yeah, it does seem it,
Massive amounts
yeah.
of refugees living on top of each other, terrible living conditions, horrible hygiene, widespread poverty, and hunger. The imagery Berserk depicts routinely demonstrates some of the absolute worst in humanity, and I think it's a wonderful means of creating those heroic and triumphant moments we remember in this series too, which for one reason or another leads us to this hedonistic cultist orgy. Never thought I'd say that.
Yeah.
Ooh, kinky.
Ooh.
With the character of Nina and her boy toy.
This
To be clear,
went
I hate Nina if not for the fact
hard
that she's this
on
way
the-
by design.
Whoa.
I'm not supposed to like her. What I do find interesting about her, though, is similar to Lady Farnese, she has an internal struggle coming to terms with who she is and ought to be ethically. And that struggle is interesting given the various strains this story puts her through. Hashtag Barrowgame. She also
Barrowgame.
introduces us to these cultists, which, let's be perfectly honest, creeped me the fuck
Yeah, it's a bit
out.
weird.
Cultists that, ironically or unironically, sought a similar escapism to that of their religion-believing counterparts. And because of this, they see Casca as their new idol after witnessing what happens when her brand starts to bleed. However, this did get me thinking, because it seems like, contrary to Guts to some degree, the demonic presences protect Casca.
Yeah, they
rather
do
than
seem to do
attack
that, don't
her.
they?
Well, long story short, because of this, most humans are turned into zombies, and Mr. Goatman is turned into an actual demonic entity, the likes of which will haunt my nightmares forever. Alright, but look, I know what you're thinking. I glanced over something. Speaking on the poetry and parallels of these two opposing ideals colliding, we physically see them collide in the cave as the Holy Iron Chain Knights arrive and begin
Mate, they're
fighting
like, what's
these
going on? What are
heretics.
these people, like, why are they so crazy?
Everyone is
Why are they
here,
biting everyone's face
tries
off?
as fast as he can to get Guts. Isidro snipes zombies with unlimited rock ammo like the absolute legend he is.
So
and
sick.
Casca is more vulnerable now than she ever has been. In the middle of absolute chaos and destruction, where the worst of the worst, both human and demon, battle each other, the lost herd and fragile Casca is all alone, outnumbered by the hordes around her. And honestly, the way Miura keeps distancing both Guts and Casca is frustrating, but
It
at this
is,
point,
but it's-
just overwhelming.
Oh, you just want to know what's going to happen every time. She's taking away, she's taking away, taking away. Keep nearly getting there, nearly getting there. Ah.
Light soars through the battlefield, seizing my attention momentarily. Suddenly, a familiar silhouette cloaked in
Whoop,
black
let's go.
flies across the page. Both portrayed at the beginning as almost part of the background, and slowly, thanks to some expert paneling, they shift to being the focus of the fight. And at the height of the drama, a surging black whirlwind breaks through the tension, stopping time in its tracks for both sides in confrontation, and in an incredible panel we finally see them. Guts and Casca reunited.
Hell
The
yes.
background is neither chaotic nor war-torn, just white and the traces of what's happened outside of one of the most intimate panels between two misfortunate souls. Separated from the rest of the conflict, separated from the rest of the world, those who struggle against this terrible fate are together once again.
Yep.
Naturally and
Whoop, whoop.
regrettably, this couldn't last.
Is it Elaine that they gave Casca's name? Yeah, yeah, they call her Elaine, don't they?
Much to Guts' anger, I couldn't help but remark, what a scene. The panel where they reunite is enough
So
to make
sick.
me cry. Miura manages to encapsulate all of the hurt, relief, and struggle on Guts' single expression contained on this one panel. It's a spectacular moment.
Looks amazing.
Oh, yes. Oh my god, this panel is so Kino. This is more Kino than anything.
Serpico versus Guts. The attempted escape from the
Oh,
chaos
mate, this was such a cool fight.
However,
Like, whoa.
This was one of the smartest ambushes I've
Yeah, man, he
ever
did
seen
not give
in
Guts a
this
chance.
of manga.
Very
I'll keep
clever
it brief,
approach.
but this is certainly like one of the best fights I've enjoyed in the series. Applying knowledge we're already familiar with, the dutiful protector of Lady Farnese combined with precise placement for the battle orchestrates one of the most
Yeah, he's like, there's no way you can use the sword here.
character of his standing has ever attempted against Guts. And in doing so, has immediately catapulted him into the ranks of some of my favorite humans from this series. Knowing exactly where Guts' weak points are and where his own shortcomings lay, placing himself on a narrow ledge, obstructing Guts' dominant hand, and preventing him from drawing his sword are among just a few of the strategies implemented in this altercation. And the best thing about this character is that he doesn't take himself too seriously. He's often depicted in a much more humorous manner than I've come to expect from this series' antagonists, and I'm honestly a big fan, and with him providing the delay the Holy Iron Chain Knights needed to whisk Casca away, it's the perfect recipe to bring all the main players together for one final showdown. Saving Casca.
Let's go.
Going into
Let's
the
get
beginning
Casca.
of this raid, I was left in a complete tizzy. I honestly couldn't predict what was going to happen. I just knew that I had to keep reading. I'm just so unbelievably invested in these characters and what little can be salvaged of Guts and Casca's relationship that I honestly felt like the worst was on the horizon for them. Miura had already demonstrated his ability to drag these characters down to depths I never before anticipated, and so he had me primed, expecting the very same this time around too. So much has gone wrong for Guts in this series.
Yes, it has.
Almost
My
everything
God, the poor
Casca
guy.
would be, I think, perhaps the final nail in the coffin for him, which I think went a very long way towards cultivating that love I have for Isidro's character. Casca is on the stakes, ready to be burned alive courtesy of Father Mozgus. Hate that guy.
Yep.
Guts is nowhere to be seen and otherwise trying and failing to get there on time. And just as I was resigned to yet another person in Guts' life being taken away from him, for reasons he would no doubt blame himself for,
Yo.
Isidro drops from the heavens and hoists her up into the air.
So sick.
When this happened, I literally ran straight to my fiancée and said, "You see that kid? He's awesome."
Yeah, he
To
is.
which she said, "Mark, it's 6 a.m. I'm trying to sleep." We have a great relationship. This climax honestly has it all, and Miura doesn't let us down in the artistic department either. Not one bit.
Mate, when these start
Depicting
turning into,
Father
like,
Mozgus
their
as an
demonic
angelic
forms, it's like,
figure of divinity
whoa.
there to protect the refugees only made me fall in love with this character more than I already have. And what's more was that the brilliant touch Miura gave to his character. Once he strips himself down to nothing but pure plates and muscle, his primary attack is a bludgeoning barrage of blunt strikes, there to represent a heretic's stoning. He's the judge,
Oh,
jury,
okay,
and
right,
executioner,
okay.
and Miura has done everything to create a final battle between himself and Guts to rival many of the battles we've seen in the past. It's brilliant, honestly. I mentioned before how Farnese denies the ugly reality of the world she lives in by doing nothing and constantly saying to herself that everything is still the same. Her entire identity and sanity is built upon her religion. By experiencing the true force of the world in its most terrifying form, to the most heartbreaking forms by Mozgus turning into one of those semi-apostles, she finally finds something real in all of this. Guts, standing alone, never breaking and always fighting back against this
Never
chaotic
gives up,
reality
does he?
check. Even
Such
in
a
her
beast.
confusion, when she almost drops her torch and begins praying to her already proven non-existent faith, lying to herself for the last time, it's Guts, much like he did with Jill in the previous arc, who helps her find the courage to fight back and take action by not depending and waiting for things to magically resolve by themselves, but instead through her own power. Farnese picks up her torch, and for the first time she struggles against this cruel reality. And she decides to follow Guts and seek the answers to all of her questions by looking at the real world without clinging to false hopes or idols, followed by her loyal servant, Serpico. Similar to Isidro, I honestly cannot wait to see where this gang goes together.
Yeah,
with Guts in the
I'm
future.
interested to see what
And
she's
not
going to
just
do in the
this,
future.
The real story of this arc has been Guts trying everything in his power to right the wrongs he's made and reconnect with Casca, to find her and to protect her in her current state. And at numerous instances, where that be the refugee camp, the cultist gathering, and the raid of the castle, there's always been something to prevent him from protecting her, stopping him from staying by the side of the one person he loves more than anyone. Which brings me to the ending, and while I absolutely adored this section more than anything I've read in a very long time, I mean, I think I even like this more than the best parts of the Golden Age, while I was writing this, it became abundantly apparent to me that the video was either going to be too short to talk about this ending properly, or it was going to be too long to edit in a single week for my editor. I really don't like splitting up arcs this much, and so we came up with what I think will be a good compromise. The next Berserk review will be Falcon of the Millennium Empire Arc Part 1. But in addition to my coverage of that material, I will also chat about the ending of this arc in the detail it deserves. So, next time you're getting a super review, and judging by the bit of the arc that I have read, I think this is going to flow really well. There's been a heavy emphasis on the themes of fate and causality
that ending,
through this story, which in some ways sort of conflict with each other.
Whoa,
now
Griffith.
the armies are marching, Griffith is flying away on his big buff Zod boy, and Guts is riding off into the dawn with Casca. I have no friggin' idea where this story is going to take me, and the best part is I'm only halfway through this series. What does
this is like the
though,
midpoint,
is that
isn't it?
Isidro, Lady Farnese, and Serpico
Because there's
are
40
following
volumes of the
behind
manga?
Guts and Casca. And in a way, this sort of makes me feel like they're building towards their very own Brand of the Hawk 2.0 right now, and I love all the characters present for it. I really hope the Falcon of the Millennium Empire arc will be as good as Conviction has been, but there's only one way to find out, guys. Tune in next time when I cover that arc, and if you don't want to miss it, leave a like and subscribe for more. But until then, I've been Totally Not Mark. I'll see you all next time, and thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, I look forward to him going over the ending, especially with the Behelit and how, like, it was a dude that, like, then turned into an egg that ate the kid thing that tries to protect Casca. It's like, what's going on? But yeah, very, very enjoyable, and like I said, I'll continue to read the Berserk manga, eventually watching Super Eye Patch Wolf's video on why you should still watch, and yeah, get on it if you're not on it. I wish I got onto Berserk and One Piece and that like a hell of a lot earlier than I did. So enjoyable. But anyway, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, we upload links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month, all that helps build the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys very much for that, and thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys, all you guys, next time.